So our theme for this month is part of our global vision. It's a realization and a focus and an affirmation of beauty, nature, art, and aesthetics. That we want the focus of life to be on those things. Because those things give us the balance of right brain. We have that right brain and the left brain has really been in charge. We're all about, reason, and we're all about, programming. I mean, I was a programmer. I was left brain big time, and I have discovered that you have to have that balance between the right brain and the left brain. And right now we're a little out of balance. We are all about the reason and the unreasonable in great abundance. And we're needing that art, the music, the sculptures. I don't know if you've seen on the Facebook page, there's a wonderful series of beautiful art sculptures from all around the world that are like, a woman, like a goddess who is blowing a huge dandelion, little dandelion ball, and it's just sort of this sculpture of it sort of spreading out. It's just amazing what people do. So the creativity really inspires us. It gives us a vision beyond what we can see right now. It inspires us. It gives us enthusiasm. It gives us hope. And so we're talking today about how generous people see the world. And I have to tell you, the table in the kitchen is overflowing. We have 2 large containers of French prunes from the Steger's garden. We have beautiful fresh figs, and if you know, those things are like $6 a carton for a little bitty carton, and they brought a big platter full of them. There's all kinds of things. The Wiggins garden, they've been bringing things for the last several weeks, apples and cucumbers and all kinds of things. So, check out the kitchen, because we have some very generous people, and what they are doing is replicating the nature of God, which is abundant, because that's why they have this abundance, right? Nature doesn't withhold. Nature gives its all. It gives its all. It's giving, all of those prunes and all of those figs and all of those, peaches and all of those tomatoes and all of that that we have planted is coming into fruition, is blooming and blossoming and bringing forth fruit, and that is the nature of spirit. It just gives and gives and gives. And that is just the visible. It is giving the invisible as well. All of that love, all of that peace, all of that harmony, all of that joy, given at every single moment. And so what we're invited to do is to be demonstrating that we are, as it says in the Bible, we're made in the image and the likeness of God. Well, in this image and likeness of God, then we are also givers. In Proverbs in the Old Testament, it says, "A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." And in the New Testament, it says, remember this, "Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. And whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver." God loves a cheerful giver because it is a demonstration that we are in the nature of the flow of good. that we realize that there is goodness and we are in it. There's a flow. The word affluent really means in the flow. Doesn't have anything to do with having a Tesla. It means that we are in the flow of good. We're recognizing goodness. We're celebrating goodness. And of course, generosity isn't just about money. It's about time. It's about giving of our abundance of, fruits and vegetables and dinners. Andy giving us this wonderful dinner that she's planned. And so, it's about the givingness of God expressing through us. That's what generosity is. And Ernest Holmes, who founded the Science of Mind and Spirit, says, in the long run, everyone who loves is loved. All who give joy receive it back. Everything moves in circles, in cycles of cause and effect. More is added to the much we use. When we refuse to use our gifts, they shrivel up. The divine flow is short-circuited. The one who gives the joy of giving will receive back even more joy than he gave out. Ever as volume increases, the circle will increase. There can be no point of saturation in that which is infinite. There can be no point of saturation in that which is infinite. And so the infinite that we have is everywhere. But fear blocks it. Fear blocks that flow. It says, fear arises from that mental attitude which limits the possibility and the willingness of Spirit to give us the good we so greatly desire. There's nothing wrong in the desire for self-expression. God is more completely expressed through the man who lives largely than through the one who lives meagerly. So what it says there is really the fear that we have, and Holmes addresses this several times. The major fear that we have is that God will not continue to bless us. That Spirit is somehow going to withhold our good. And we have learned that over time. We have learned it from people who tried to teach us that there was lack and limitation. And where did we learn it? Anybody here ever play musical chairs? That is the game of lack and limitation. The chairs keep disappearing. We keep having to fight for those chairs. It's competition, There's only one chair. Oh, We have to win the chair. We have to fight for the chair. It's like, no, maybe not. Maybe there's enough chairs for everybody. Maybe we could sit on the floor, But we've been trained. So there's an article online in a site called becomingminimalist.com. And in it, Joshua Becker talks about ways generous people see the world. And one of the ways that generous people see the world is that they recognize the resource pie is not finite. They recognize that the resource pie is not finite. And you may say, well, the oil is going to go away and blah, blah, blah. Yes, and is that the only form of energy? We used to rely on whales for the oil that lit our lamps. We don't have to do that anymore. And, we are going to wind, and we are going to solar, and we are going to, I understand that I just saw an ad on TV for a Toyota that's hydrogen powered. The only output is water. So, and apparently the Japanese are going hydrogen powered big time. So, there are resources. We just have to say, oh, we have done too much with that resource. Is there another resource? Yeah, There's another resource. So maybe we can, and we can also think about, do I really need, 47 electronic devices in my house? There are times when I just want to go back to the plain old calendar, It takes me longer to get all my fingers going in that little phone, But it says, he says, the mindset of competition that my resources only grow when someone else's shrinks is based on a faulty premise. It assumes there is a finite-sized pie, and if someone else enjoys success, my opportunity shrinks. But that's not true. That thinking is incorrect. The pie of resources is not finite. It continues to grow as society benefits from others' successes. So there's whole new areas that open up. And yes, there may be jobs that go away. We don't have people who have to stoke the fires in a train engine anymore. And that was a big deal in its time that those jobs went away. But they had, better engines and they didn't need to stoke the fires anymore. And so we continue to grow and develop into new fields, and we have to have new skills for these new fields. So what we have to remember is that the whole of God is present at every single point of its creation. Everything is available in this moment if we recognize that that is so, and we open to that possibility. If we're feeling constricted, the first thing we have to do is breathe, because respiration is re-spiriting ourselves. So we realize our connection to spirit through the breath, and we open to a possibility that we haven't thought of before. If I pick up something heavy, the law of gravity works for everybody, right? My picking up this glass doesn't diminish you in any way, right? If I picked up this podium, besides getting a hernia, I would not diminish your ability to pick up a chair. It's the law of gravity is just there for everybody to use, and one person using it doesn't diminish anybody else's using it. Same thing is true of God. I had an aunt who lived in San Francisco, in the Excelsior district of San Francisco, and she had 5 kids. Her house was open all the time. The door was never locked. Kids after school came to her house. She always had snacks for the kids. She had games for the kids. She played games with the kids. So she always had a house full of children. And when she passed away a couple of years ago, all those children who were now adults came and talked about how wonderful it was to have that safe space to go to play in, to be welcomed in. She never locked the front door of her house in San Francisco. And I'm talking about not the greatest neighborhood in San Francisco. She never locked the door. They got robbed once and they broke in a back window. Could have walked in the front door. So another quality of a generous person is that they know that generosity leads to greater happiness, right? So studies confirm what generous people already know. Giving increases happiness, fulfillment, and purpose in the life of the giver. We are not designed to be creatures of selfishness. Instead, we were designed to seek and discover happiness in loving and caring for others. And those who decide to look for fulfillment there quickly discover it. I saw a post on Facebook yesterday from Reverend Eileen Brownell, who went to the Chipotle in her neighborhood. And she came to the pay at the cashier, and the cashier said, lunch is on us. Lunch is on us. Your lunch is free. And she said, what? She's standing there with her mouth hanging open. And she said, The cashier explained that the manager was purchasing meals for individuals who show kindness. She further explained that when I was asked how I was doing by one of the servers, I replied, "Fantastic, how are you?" The cashier stated that most people don't do that or don't care or are not really interested in the staff and how they feel. According to her, I had shown kindness, genuinely cared, and the meal was on them. Wow. Wow. Surprise. Generosity. Gratitude. And doesn't that make you feel good? It really does. There was another story about a woman who was this was in the AARP magazine, I noticed there was a story about this woman. And back in the 80s, 1981, she decided to follow her boyfriend from Colorado to New Mexico. And so she's in New Mexico, she's got a job, and her boyfriend travels a lot. So she's by herself, she doesn't know anybody, she has no friends there. And she goes to pick up her paycheck, and guess what? They have forgotten to do the paperwork to transfer her payroll to the new location in New Mexico. She's going to have to wait 4 weeks for her check. She doesn't know anybody there. She's like sitting at her desk going, oh my God. And her supervisor comes up and slips her an envelope. And the envelope is $400, which doesn't sound like much, but in 1981, when she was making $8,700 a year, that was a lot of money. And so she was very grateful, and the supervisor just said, pay me back when you get paid. So, a generous person can really make a difference to one person. To one person. That brings me to another aspect of how a generous person is in the world, and that is they believe changing even one life is worthwhile. They believe that changing even one life is worthwhile. Generous people are quick to admit the world's problems will never be solved by one person, and perhaps never completely solved even in the future, but perfection does not slow them. To them, changing even one life within their sphere of influence is reward enough and is a worthwhile endeavor to be sought. So you've probably heard this story, but I think it bears repeating. So there's an elderly gentleman, he's walking on the beach, and he sees a little boy, and the little boy is picking up starfish and throwing them into the ocean. And the man comes up to him and says, good morning, may I ask what it is you're doing? And the young man paused and looked up and said, throwing starfish into the ocean. And the old man smiled and said, I must ask then, why are you throwing starfish into the ocean? And to this young man replied, the sun is up and the tide is going out. If I don't throw them in, they'll die. And upon hearing this, the elderly observer commented, but young man, do you not realize there are miles and miles of beach? There are starfish along every mile. You can't possibly make a difference. The young man listened politely. Then he bent down, picked up another starfish, threw it back into the ocean, and said, it made a difference to that one. It made a difference to that one. Helping one life. We can give smiles. Doesn't cost us a dime, but it can really make a change in someone's life. I remember hearing a story about a young man who was going to commit suicide on the Golden Gate Bridge. In fact, he did end up jumping, but he survived. But he was standing there just being miserable, contemplating jumping over the side. And a woman came up to him and said, would you mind taking a picture of me and my husband? So he did. But he said, if one person had stopped and smiled, if one person had taken a moment to just say, are you okay? It could have made all the difference. But for him, he did jump, but he survived and was rescued. He was a little messed up, but he survived. And, he knew as soon as he felt himself falling over the side, that it was a big mistake. That it was not what he should have done, because he did have more choices. He just couldn't see them. And maybe that one smile, that one person saying, "Are you okay?" would have made a difference. So we never know how what we do impacts someone else. We're not going to solve the homeless problem in Grass Valley by doing lunch or doing dinner at Hospitality House, but it feeds over 50 people, men, women, and sometimes children. So we make a difference for those people in that moment. We provide them food. We're happy to see them. We connect with them. We used to be able to sit down and have dinner with them, but now there's not room. But it's still a blessing to serve, a blessing to be able to be with them and to feed them and to know that we're giving. And it's not about giving to get. It's about giving to live. It's about demonstrating our connection to life and being that inlet and that outlet for the divine to operate through us. Everyone who serves on Sunday morning, David making coffee and the guys doing sound and everybody who's collecting the money and doing the PowerPoints and creating the PowerPoints and training people how to do PowerPoints, and all of the giving that they do makes this community possible. It is the givingness of God being demonstrated. It's part of our spiritual practice. Giving is part of the spiritual practice because we're just demonstrating that we are willing to be God incarnate. We are willing to be a representation of God in action. That's what we're here for, to show that we are that. We are that presence being made manifest and doing our work in the world. What a blessing. Think of someone who's been generous to you. How did that feel? Think of someone who's been generous to you. How did that feel? And think of when you have been generous, because I know you have. Think of when you have been generous. How does that make you feel? When you give with no expectation of return, you just give to give. You just give to live. A prosperity teacher by the name of Edwin Gaines says, money is like manure. You have to spread it around for it to do any good. And she does. She is a tither. She tithes. She comes and speaks at different communities, and she always tithes to those communities. So it's about giving our gifts. It's about sharing, mentoring, teaching, learning. Sometimes, it's up to us to listen, to just be a listening presence, to give the gift of our time to listen. When we trust in the infinite giving nature of the universe, we cannot help but be generous. So our affirmation for this week is, I am an inlet and an outlet for the infinite flow of good. I am an inlet and an outlet for the infinite flow of good. I am an inlet and an outlet for the infinite flow of good. I am an inlet and an outlet for the infinite flow of good. And so it is.